This is the Gridiron Guys podcast with Anthony Stalter and Super Bowl champion Carey Davis.
Driven by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Welcome back to Gridiron Guys. It's the podcast dedicated to football with Super Bowl champion Carey Davis. I'm Anthony Stalter. The NFL draft is now behind us. Off-season, including trades, Carey, is now behind us. And before we get into division-by-division looks, and we will be doing that in upcoming podcast, I wanted to play a game today centered on the QB position.
Okay.
Let's play Love It, Hate It, or We'll See with each quarterback change. You like that?
Yes, sir.
All right, so why don't we won't waste any time. Let's start off with the biggest move this offseason, and that was Aaron Rodgers being traded from the Packers to the Jets. We broke down the compensation going to the Packers. We've talked about the different storylines, but now let's talk about actual how this impacts the division, the AFC East in this case. Love it, hate it, or we'll see on Aaron Rodgers.
I actually love it. I love it for Aaron Rodgers. I love it for the Jets. We talked about this team being a team on the rise, on the ascend, and you got the offensive rookie of the year. You got the defensive rookie of the year. You got a running back in Breece Hall who would have potentially been the offensive rookie of the year had he not gotten hurt. You expect him to come back full force, ready to go. The question, they added Alan Lazard, a Green Bay Packer from past that Aaron Rodgers knows really well. I think the thing that's going to be intriguing is to see how well they're able to protect up front. They're in a division with the Bills, who have been the clear and away favorite for the last couple of years. The Patriots, who are still trying to figure some things out post Tom Brady. And then you got the Miami Dolphins with a healthy Tua. Looks like they could be a really good team. But this New York Jets team in this division, I love the fact that they went out, gave up some things to get Aaron Rodgers because they know what this team and what this roster has in place for a good quarterback. You know,
you got to love it. You have to. You look at it from the Jets' perspective. Now, I can talk about how the Jets are getting a quarterback potentially that his play dropped off a year ago. It did. And I don't think it's just because the Packers didn't surround him or Matt LaFleur, whatever excuse you want to make up for Aaron Rodgers. The bottom line is he and the Packers had every opportunity after playing well in the second half of the season to clinch a playoff spot at home, Lambeau Field. Yeah. I essentially count that as a home playoff loss for Aaron Rodgers. And those started to mount in his final years in Green Bay. That said, when you got Zach Wilson and you have Joe Flacco or a year ago Mike White as your starting quarterback and you have a defensive-minded coach, you have to nail this spot, and you have to do it with a veteran. And the premier quarterback that was available this offseason, we can talk about Lamar Jackson. He re-signed with the Ravens. He didn't move. And we can talk about whether or not he could have been available and all that stuff. But the bottom line is we knew that Aaron Rodgers was available. We knew the Packers wanted to trade him. And the Jets made the move. They bring in a guy that has won a Super Bowl and has gotten to his teams to a ton of playoffs. You have to love the move if you're the Jets, and you haven't had a stable quarterback now since Mark Sanchez in 2009 and 10. That's a long time.
It is a long time, and that's a franchise that has been in need of just great football players. They haven't had, one of those seasons that you talk about for a long time, and Mark Sanchez was a good quarterback in his own right, but Aaron Rodgers is much better. He's a multi-time MVP. So I think having him on the roster is definitely going to solidify what they've been missing for a long time. The thing that I know everyone says, well, Aaron Rodgers stunk last year. He didn't perform well. We have to take into consideration how slowly that team started, specifically with those young receivers who took a while to figure out exactly what they were going to do. Alan Lazard, if I'm not mistaken, was hurt early in the season, so he missed some time as well. When he came back around, they were able to get some things solidified, and they grew up. That receiving core grew up, and you saw a much better team now. You brought to the point that they had an opportunity to make the playoffs in Detroit. Or were they at home that game?
They
were at home against Detroit and did not take care of their business. But all in all, I'm not ready to just do away with Aaron Rodgers based off of last season's numbers. I think there were a lot of other factors that led into why he didn't have the ghastly numbers that we're accustomed to him having. But I think going into this year, you get Garrett Wilson in his second year. You get a healthy Breece Hall back, a running game, which obviously helped him a lot in Green Bay, having those two running backs. I think he's going to be the best version of himself. Will he be an MVP candidate? I don't know. I don't know if he'll be there, but I think with the weapons that team has, I think he's going to be really good.
Two more notes on this. One, credit the Lions. I don't want to just make it about the Packers losing. The Lions took it.
And they didn't have anything to play for at that point because Seattle would have had to have lost for them to have a chance to make the playoffs. The only thing that they had in front of them was keeping their division rival out of the playoffs, and they played their butts off and kept Green Bay out.
They found their motivation. They found out that they wouldn't make the playoffs like an hour, maybe an hour and a half before.
Yeah.
They actually took the field. So credit the Lions for going in there and earning that victory. So again, I don't want to take it away just by saying that Aaron Rodgers and the Packers blew their opportunity. The only other thing I'll say too about those receivers, Rodgers is culpable. He didn't invest the offseason time.
He did not.
When it came to this, he knew the young receivers. He decided to stay away, and they're voluntary. They're voluntary, but you're the quarterback,
right?
So they're really mandatory, especially when you have a young wide receiving core like the Packers did. But it's water under the bridge. He's now a Jet. You and I both love it from the Jet standpoint, and that's how we're looking. That's how we're viewing it.
Right.
I'm also, Carey, viewing the similar situation with the Saints, who signed Derek Carr this offseason. If you're the Saints and you have Andy Dalton and you have Jameis Winston and you're trying to bridge the gap between Drew Brees, a surefire Hall of Famer, to whoever your next franchise quarterback is, and you have a talented defense and your offense still consists of, for the time being, Alvin Kamara and some of those pieces with the Saints, Mickey Loomis, the GM, does a great job of constantly having a pretty good offensive line, good pass rushers. Mm-hmm. The quarterback spot has been this merry-go-round since Drew Brees retired. Yep. Taysom Hill's been in there as well. Derek Carr is a very good quarterback.
Don't remind me about Taysom Hill. It's a fantasy football thing. He's taking away points from Allen.
Okay, there you
Alvin
go.
Kamara.
I was about to say, what is a BYU fan? What's the deal? What's the deal with Taysom Hill and Carey Davis? For me, Carey, I think Derek Carr is a very good quarterback. Yep. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I don't think he wins a Super Bowl. But the Saints, knowing, again, that they've got to fill the most important spot, did so with a quarterback that led the Raiders at one point to a playoff appearance, somebody that, under John Gruden 2 years ago, performed at a high level. Josh McDaniels takes over, and it just didn't work out. I don't think that. I think Derek Carr is who he is. I think he's very competent. I think he's good in that division. The Saints, to me, should be the division leader. They should be the team to beat. I love it. I don't think they win big time, but you're not going to be in a spot to draft your next franchise quarterback where the Saints were selecting in the first round this year. They had to bring in a veteran, and they do very well to bring in Derek Carr. So, again, I love it.
So, for me, I love it as well, but I'm going to go and give Derek Carr a little bit more love than you. He has been, year after year on a team with terrible defenses. He has been
very true. Good point.
Not having that defense. He's had to have a lot of comebacks in his career when he was with the Raiders. You go to New Orleans, and they have a defense that's top 5 in points allowed, top, I think, 10 in points per game. You're looking at a defense that has figured some things out, and they have been very good defensively, throughout the past couple of years. So I think with having him there, if you get a healthy Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara there for the entire year, we're still, don't know what's going to happen with the trial and the charges that he received in Las Vegas last year. But you got a quarterback who has so many weapons. You spoke about Taysom Hill. He's a Swiss Army knife that can do so many things, whether it's playing quarterback, tight end, running back, he line up in the slot, whatever you need him to do. You got two guys in Alvin Kamara and him that are able to do that. There's a lot of weapons on this offense that I think I didn't even bring up Chris Olave, who also had a very good rookie year. You got a lot of guys that can do a lot of things, but the most important factor for Derek Carr, and the reason why I love his transition to quarterback of the New Orleans Saints, is because of the defense. And knowing that if I get a lead, we're not necessarily going to give up that lead and be in a position where I got to fight and come back, or we're going to lose that game. And I think he just gets a bad rep because of his win-loss record. But when you look at the defense not playing complementary football with him and the offense, that's part of the reason why he hasn't had as much success as you would think he should.
No, Carey, I think you nailed it. I think that's a great point. Derek Carr himself has got to figure out, and I don't know how much of this was Josh McDaniels or him, but Carey, he's got to get back to the guy that had a 7.9 yards per attempt average in back-to-back years when he was in Oakland in 2019 and 2020. So nearly an 8 average yard per pass attempt. This is somebody that I think has been, especially earlier in his career, was a bit check down Charlie. Game on the line, big moment needs to happen, and he'll take the safe completion that nets him 5 yards when he needs 7. And I get the yards after catch aspect, but that's on the quarterback as well. That's a Joe Montana, Bill Walsh thing.
Right.
Lead the wide receiver. Don't just dump it off and they got to break 3 tackles. And I think Derek Carr, again, earlier in his career, was that guy. Then he gets 2019 and 2020 version, 7.9. 2021, 7.7 yards per attempt. Last year, 7.0.
Yeah.
That won't cut it.
Yeah.
He cannot be check down Charlie and win multiple playoff games. So that, I think, is going to be his next thing.
I think you also had to take into consideration how many coaches has he had in his career. I mean, you had the John Gruden thing, you had Rich Bisaccia, you brought in Josh McDaniels. You've in the last 4 to 5 years, it's been a turnstile of just coaches coming in, OCs. There's a lot of different terminology, a lot of different philosophies that you're trying to learn and pick up. So if you can get a place, and hopefully, we can see the version of Derek Carr that led them to the playoffs and he was injured and couldn't play. You can see that version of him where he is a really, really good quarterback on a really talented team around him, take care of the football. If he's checking the ball down to Alvin Kamara, I'll take it. Because a 5-yard check down to that guy, it could be a 25-yard pass play.
Let's use him, though, this year, Carey.
I would, listen.
A year ago. What was that?
I don't know what that was. That's why when you said Taysom Hill, I almost chewed through the microphone because there were so many times where Taysom Hill was getting those runs. And I'm like, Alvin Kamara could do that. Why aren't you using him?
Carey, they're taking him off the
backfield.
They're taking him off the field for Mark Ingram.
Bring them, put them both in the backfield, and let them do what they can do. Yeah. I figure it out. Be intelligent about your best players being on the field and allowing them to be the superstars that they are. And if New Orleans decides to make that decision with what they have, again, a healthy Michael Thomas is a dangerous animal for any defense. You got weapons completely all around that team. And so I'm really excited for Derek Carr and this offense, and I'm hoping, like I said, injuries aside, he stays healthy, the offense stays healthy, they protect him, keep him clean. He's going to take care of the football, and if that defense plays complementary football, watch out for this New Orleans team in the NFC South because they could win this thing running away.
So we're playing love it, hate it, we'll see. And this is not just like the quarterback. We're not saying we love the quarterback. We love the situation.
We love that quarterback.
Exactly. Yeah. We love what the team did based on what either they had over the last couple of years or like what the Jets have had basically the entire existence of their franchise, not named Joe Namath, right? Yeah. So we're not just talking about whether or not we like the quarterback because I'm sure you'll listen to Carey and I on Gridiron Guys, or if you listen to either of our St. Louis-based radio shows, Aaron Rodgers, to me, like personally, there's not a lot of athletes I root against. He might be one of them. I'm fully admitting this. But when it comes to the Jets needing a QB, you couldn't have done much better.
You don't like darkness rooms?
I just
darkness retreats.
Carey's not relatable to me. So I'll just leave it at that.
So you're saying you're not going to spend 3 days in the dark without
I don't think I'm going to spend 3 days in the dark room. No. Do you?
No. I mean, that sounds like a jail sentence. I'm okay.
Yeah, there you go. Fine, fair enough. That's Carey Davis and Anthony Stalter. Let's talk about the team that Derek Carr goes from, which is the Las Vegas Raiders, because they signed Jimmy Garoppolo. This is a we'll see for me. What about you?
I hate it.
Really?
I think you downgraded. I don't think, based off of Jimmy G's injury past, the offense that he had around him in San Francisco, again, we talk about New Orleans and the studs that they have. You got those studs in San Francisco, and it allows you to be the best version of yourself when you're healthy, but he's often injured. And speaking of I'm talking about the Oakland Raiders. Las Vegas Raiders now no longer have. Who is their star? Darren Waller is no longer there. Who are you? Who are you? Devontae Adams. And does he want to be there? I mean,
he probably wants to be in New York now.
He probably wants to be with his guy. You bring Devontae Adams in. He leaves Aaron Rodgers. He goes and gets to be with his college teammate, and now his college teammate doesn't even finish the last 2 games in Derek Carr. So you're an organization that is trying to figure some things out. Darren Waller, as I said, is no longer there. Hunter Renfrow, Josh Jacobs, you didn't want to re-sign him going into you didn't want to pick up his 5th-year option.
Yeah.
You got a lot of things going on in that Las Vegas organization that I don't think is conducive for Jimmy G to have success.
For me, it's a we'll see because for Jimmy G, I agree with the San Francisco aspect of it. You got Kyle Shanahan calling the plays and all that. You've got a lot of weapons. I don't mind the weapons that Vegas has. I'm not somebody that says you need 14 wide receivers to succeed. Mm-hmm. You got a true number one in Devontae Adams. Hunter Renfrow is a fine slot receiver. Jacoby Myers they picked up. He's fine as a number two. Whatever. To me again, you don't need to have 14 receivers. You need a legit number one that can draw a lot of the attention away, and then you need somebody to scheme open some of these receivers. You signed Austin Hooper, fine tight end. He's bounced around a little bit now, but he's a fine safety blanket. And they also drafted Michael Mayer in the second round out of Notre Dame. Josh Jacobs is still the center, the key to that offense. The reason why I say we'll see is that, one, you mentioned the health aspect of it. He hasn't been healthy over the last couple of years, so we'll see if he can stay healthy. If he does stay healthy, Jimmy G is more than competent. I mean, you don't get to a Super Bowl by accident. You don't play in multiple NFC championship games by accident. Right. And when the 49ers, when they inserted him back into their offense last year when Trey Lance got hurt very early, all of a sudden it's like, thank God Jimmy G's back. There's something to that. But the defense, as you mentioned with Derek Carr, Carey, the defense is not good. So can he win shootouts now? Because that's essentially what he's going to have to do. And that, I think, is a big question mark. I don't mind the fit. If he can stay healthy, I think he's competent. But is he going to elevate the Raiders at that position? I think the point that you made about whether or not they actually upgraded that position is well made.
So the reason why I'm not sold and why I say I hate it for the Raiders is because you spoke about the talent of that San Francisco team. He didn't start last year. Trey Lance did. And then guess what? He got hurt, and guess what happened? Brock Purdy went on and took him as far as he could take him before he got hurt. It doesn't matter in that San Francisco offense, Anthony.
I can play in it.
Maybe you and I might be able to hand the ball off to Christian McCaffrey or throw a
smoke screen to Debo.
I think I could do that. It might one hop, but just stand behind me and it's a lateral. You can catch it and keep going. So I'm not thrilled with the pickup of Jimmy G, especially in that division. You have a division where you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Justin Herbert. If it was Sean Payton going to Denver, maybe, hopefully, prayerfully, everyone in Denver gets to see the best version of Russell Wilson. I don't love the pickup because I don't think, if anything, it's a lateral move from the quarterback you had and maybe even a step lower than what you had in Derek Carr. That's the only reason why I don't think it's going to work out for him.
All right, so we're playing love it, hate it, we'll see, and we're focusing on quarterbacks that changed the landscape of their team this offseason. And we will get to some quarterbacks that are new. They're going to be rookies. Yep. But let's stick with some of these offseason moves. I think we can move kind of quickly here as we go back to the NFC South. The Buccaneers are going with Baker Mayfield, and they are rolling the dice with Kyle Trask. I hate it because where else are you gonna go? You had the GOAT. You went all in for when you had Brady, and you should have went all in with Brady. You signed all these guys on both sides of the ball to make multiple runs at a Super Bowl. You won one. You went to multiple playoffs. You couldn't win after that. The wheels fell off. But that offensive line is dreadful.
Yes.
There's a reason why Tom Brady was getting the ball out as much as he was. This is somebody that's not mobile, and he knows playing behind a bad offensive line, you got to get the ball out. Baker's not going to have that same that same knowledge, that same football IQ, obviously. I'm not taking a dig at Baker. It is what it is. Same thing with Kyle Trask. That is a full rebuild with a pretty talented roster in certain areas. I mean, you're still going to have Mike Evans. You're still going to have Chris Godwin. Yep. You're still going to have some of those pieces defensively. But look, you took a major step back at the quarterback position. And until this is tanking without tanking, Carey. They're going to have to get the number one overall pick or be in that top five so they could take their quarterback of the future. Otherwise, I hate it because it's kind of default at this point with the Bucs.
Yeah, this team has changed drastically. Obviously, Tom Brady not being there, Leonard Fournette is gone. You still have Mike Evans, you still have Chris Godwin, as you spoke about, but you don't have the quarterback or the ability. Baker Mayfield, I think, is a nice guy. I think he's a good guy to be around. I would want to hang around Baker. Love the commercials. I think that those commercials are hilarious. You know, trying to get into the Brown Stadium, forgot your code, your key, whatever. It's funny to me. I love it. I love his personality. I think he's a great human being and has fun playing the game. I don't think he's going to lead this franchise to a playoff victory or a playoff run at all.
They're not going to have a winning season.
You think they'll be below 500?
Oh, yeah.
So then I hate it. It was always going to be I hate it, but I really hate it if you stand pat and don't try to go get a quarterback. There was talks that maybe they drafted Will Levis in the first round. They did not. And so now you're just really trying to figure out what you're going to be with this team. And we talked about the New Orleans Saints. That's going to be the team that I think wins that division. But this Tampa Bay team is going to have a rough season. And it's going to be frustrating for Mike Evans, who is, I think, on a career path to a Hall of Fame type path with the way he catches the touchdowns and has such a great career so far. His numbers are showing that so far in his career. It's going to be a frustrating season for him having to deal with what they have to deal with this year.
Unless I'm seeing things wrong, we got one other quarterback, non-rookie quarterback, to talk about, and that would be Sam Howell in Washington. We'll see. Look, you had Carson Wentz a year ago.
We'll see?
You had Carson Wentz a year ago.
You think we'll see?
We'll see.
What do you think you're going to see?
I can't hate it.
Why?
If you're coming off Carson Wentz.
That doesn't mean you can't hate this as well.
I'll put you under center in Washington. I'll love that based on what you had in Carson Wentz. We'll see with Sam Howell.
How many teams made the playoffs from the NFC East?
Last year, 3.
Yeah. Okay. What was Washington?
4. Washington was not the one that didn't.
Okay.
I'll just fast track this.
So we're just gonna say hate it and move on. We don't have to dig into anything. I hate it because I don't think you didn't even look at a quarterback in the draft.
You got Jacoby Brissett, man. You signed him in the offseason. You're set, Carey. You got your backup.
Jacoby was in Indy. You've seen Indy play a few times.
Yeah, it's not good.
Okay. I don't. Again, Jacoby is a nice guy. I think he's a great guy. He was in Cleveland last year. He's been all over the place. He's well liked. He is a great guy.
Right.
You know what great guys do? They don't always win games. So I need a stud. And so for me, having Sam Howell there, I love Terry McLaurin. I think he is a special, special talent. Josh Dotson came on last year and showed that he could play and could do some really good things. Their running back situation with Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, kind of a 1-2 punch. I love that as well. I just don't love the quarterback. And you can have all of those guys on the outside doing all of those amazing things, and if you don't have a guy that can get you the ball, that division is not going to take a step back. That division, actually, the Eagles got better, probably.
I agree. They did. I agree.
Through the draft and through some free agent signings and some losing of some people, they got better. The New York Giants, I think, got better. They re-signed Dexter Lawrence. They got some pieces that they did well in the draft. They added Darren Waller in a trade, and so
they're well coached.
These are two teams in your division that are ascending in the right direction. I don't know what the Dallas Cowboys are going to do. They are who they are, but I think it's going to be tough. You talked about who did you say was going to have a losing record? The
Tampa.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I think Tampa could have the number 1 overall pick next year. That's how bad I think Tampa is.
Okay, well they'll be number 2.
Washington will be number 2.
They'll be right there.
They could be the 2 teams.
They'll be top 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
Houston, depending on how good CJ Stroud is.
What Houston did.
I do too, and we'll get to the rookie, but that roster still got a long way to go. But what I'm saying is these are 2 teams that I think could be Tampa and Washington could be absolutely disastrous this year.
You got 6 games in your division, and they might not win one of them.
I actually just thought of the team that's probably going to have the number 1 overall pick. It's Arizona.
Oh, yeah.
Arizona's roster's the way. Okay.
Because he's hurt. He's
hurt, and that roster's bad.
Yeah.
So, but whatever. We don't. They're going to be in the top. I think Tampa
5
is going to be in the top 5 in the draft next year, and I think Washington's going to be in the top 5 next year.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
Let's go to rookies now.
All right.
Love it, hate it, we'll see. And I don't know how many hate it we're gonna dive into here, outside of maybe 1. But let's start off with the number 1 overall pick. Bryce Young goes to the Carolina Panthers. Carey, I think you and I are on the same page here, so I'll let you go. Go ahead.
Yeah, I love it.
Yep,
I think, for as much as they complained and people talked about, his size, he's 5'10", he played in the toughest conference in all of college football. he excelled. He succeeded. He did all of the things. He won a Heisman. He led his team against a Georgia team that had, you know how many people got drafted off that defense from
They're all on the Eagles,
yeah. I think 8 of them are on the Eagles.
The Eagles starting defense.
The other 4 are elsewhere.
Yeah.
He did a great job his entire career, despite the size that most people think is an issue. He does everything right on and off the field. He is a leader, and you need a leader of men, regardless of what age you are, regardless of where you're drafted, when you're drafted. You got to have a leader of men, and I think Bryce Young is that. He's in a great organization with a great staff that is going to help nurture him and show him the right way to do things and become a pro. So I'm excited for him and what that Carolina team, and they, much as we talk about, as much as they did last season, they traded away Christian McCaffrey. Robbie Anderson was gone. He got kicked off the sideline in the middle of a game. You fired your coach mid-season. You did all of those things, and they still were having a chance to win that division, and they ran the ball down people's throats. So if you have a running game and you add some pieces for them, I'm excited for Bryce Young and that Carolina team next year.
Carey, you nailed it. They got better.
Yes.
They got better after those moves.
They did.
I like Carolina a lot. I love what they did here. Now, I know they lost. I know they traded away DJ Moore.
Yeah.
Good for Chicago. Good for Chicago for getting the haul that they did and getting DJ Moore. But, Carey, if DJ Moore is in my way of possibly getting a franchise-changing quarterback, then DJ, I'm sorry, you got to go.
You got to figure it out.
You got to go.
Yeah.
I'm not worried. I'm not losing sleep over a wide receiver being included in a deal that could possibly net me a franchise quarterback. I'm with you. I love Bryce Young. I love that they have an offensive-minded guy in Frank Reich who took the heat in Indy with he was the fall guy for for Chris Ballard, the GM, not finding their quarterback.
Right.
Over the last couple of years. But let's keep in mind that when Frank Reich had Phillip Rivers on his last legs and an offensive line that was still intact, they went to the playoffs, won a playoff game. I think they even won a playoff road game, if I remember correctly. But now that Frank Reich is in Carolina, I think it's a nice landing spot for him. I like that Bryce Young doesn't have a defensive coach. When you have a guy that's calling the plays as your head coach,
right,
there's an extra investment there in your young quarterback. I love that. You know, they did get DJ Chark. They brought in Adam Thielen. That wide receiver group is not great. Marshall Jr. was there a year ago. Again, not great overall. Who cares? You can draft receivers second round, third round. In fact, they got Mingo in the second round this year
out of Ole Miss.
Okay, cool.
And they've had some. Ole Miss has put out a few players in the receivers. In the
absolutely,
last few years.
yeah,
they're really good. So
AJ Brown being the highlight. Their defense is pretty good as well. I like what they've done defensively. When you bring in Brian Burns, you drafted him first round. J.C. Horn was a first round pick. 2 years ago, I believe. They brought in Von Bell, the free agent safety out of Cincinnati this year. I like Carolina. I think that this, depending on Bryce Young's developments, and don't forget Miles Sanders they brought in too,
right,
to a group that, as you noted, was running down people's throats last year with Chuba Hubbard. I like what Carolina did. C.J. Stroud fits more into the we'll see category. Okay. I liked Bryce Young more than C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud turned some heads in that Georgia game, that playoff Georgia game. He was somebody that I didn't think freelanced a lot. He was somebody that played within the confines of the Ohio State system, constantly looking at Ryan Day and that coaching staff, getting the play there, and just executing the play.
Right.
Kerry, there's a lot of college offenses that operate that way. I'm not bagging on that. Ohio State, they want to win games, not necessarily develop quarterbacks that are going to be franchise signal callers for the NFL. Right. They're trying to win games and national championships. So that's the best way to do it for them. I don't think that's the best way to develop quarterbacks, though. I think C.J. Stroud's got a longer way to go than Bryce Young, who played in a mix of a spread and a pro style, and he ran that offense, Gary. He ran it. So I think C.J. Stroud is in the we'll see category, but the fact that Houston made that move, they got him and Will Anderson, the pass rusher out of Alabama, I like what Houston's doing, but it's a we'll see for me on C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, I love what Houston did as well, going and trading back to get Will Anderson after selecting C.J. Stroud. I thought was a brilliant move, and the way that they did it, it's guys that are thinking high level and making sure that they're getting the pieces that will allow them to be successful. And for me, I think it's not enough stock into the fact that these young men played in some of the most important games of their career, the biggest games that they could play in at the collegiate level. That matters, because when you get to the NFL, you understand each game is how impactful it can be. So I'm excited about the C.J. Stroud pick. I love it. I know you take the Will C approach. Mm-hmm. I think he was the second best quarterback in the draft, and everyone was considering whether it would be Anthony Richardson, Will Levis. Will Levis jumped up to maybe being the first one taken. It was maddening leading up to it, but I think it played out exactly how it should play out. And I'm excited to see this Houston team, because you're in a division where, Anthony, who's going to win it? Who's going to win that division? Who can you put your stamp of approval on and say, you probably say Jacksonville.
I would say Jacksonville.
Because of what they did.
Yeah.
But they're still young as well. So, when you have young teams, anything can happen. And I would say Jacksonville, but Indianapolis is not a team that I would stick put my stamp of approval on. Neither is Tennessee. They're both in quarterback situations trying to figure out, is Anthony Richardson the guy? Is Tannehill the guy? No, we got Will Levis. Malik Willis was drafted last year. Yeah. What are we going to do? I think Houston did a really good job, and I'm looking forward to seeing that team play, because I think they got a lot more fight in them than what people may think. And then you add a first-year head coach in DeMeco Ryans. I want to see that defense fly around, and I want to see Will Anderson do his thing and see what they do.
The arrow is pointing up for them, certainly. Yeah. Let's stay in that division. You had mentioned Indy and Tennessee. Let's go to Indy, who takes Anthony Richardson with the 4th overall pick this year.
That was a surprise.
It's a we'll see for me, but I love the decision. What else are you going to do? You're Indianapolis. You don't have a QB. You signed Gardner Minshew, so Gardner Minshew can start until – I would sit Anthony Richardson the entire year, because he probably should have went back to Florida from a developmental standpoint. Now, the fact that he got taken 4th overall, hey, you made the right decision, kid. But from a developmental standpoint, Carey, I think Indy's got to take it slow here. He's got a big arm. He's got all this athleticism. But there's a lot when you watch Florida last year, there was a lot to be desired from his film.
Right.
And I'm not a scout. I'm not a QB coach, but just a football fan watching that offense. They was stagnant, and there was a lot of times I thought he played better 2 years ago. So something happened there. So I think that Gardner Minshew needs to be the starter for Indy and just kind of play it slow. But that offensive line, there's a reason why Matt Ryan went from maybe he's got a year left to, oh man, this is bad.
It's over now.
And Ryan was playing bad.
Yeah.
But that offensive line was terrible. And it got worse last offseason, and they thought just by moving Rivers goes out,
right.
Ryan comes in, it's like, oh, we'll have a similar team. No, you didn't, because they did a better job of protecting Rivers 2 years ago than Ryan. So again, I'd feed Gardner Minshew to the Wolves a little bit, let him run around, do his thing. But I love the fact that the Colts said, we're going to take our guy here. We know he's a project. What else are you going to do?
Right.
If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have anything. So you might as well roll the dice with Anthony Richardson.
Well, they took the best player available for them, one of the best athletes in the draft. And I think, I agree with you, Gardner Minshew starting those games and really being your go-to guy. But I think you also have packages that you set up for Anthony Richardson, where he can come in, maybe do some RPOs, do some zone read type of plays, and allow him to get into the flow of the game, and then throw some passes. Get yourself acclimated to being a quarterback in the NFL without the pressure of being the day one opening day starter for an NFL franchise, because as you said, it's going to be a progress for him learning how he needs to go about his business. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of film of him watching Jalen Hurts and seeing his progression and maturation, because last year, Jalen Hurts compared to this past season, 2021, Jalen Hurts compared to 2022 is leaps and bounds different from year to year. So I think if you get a Anthony Richardson who becomes a film junkie, who's willing and wants to learn, I think he can learn a lot from Shane Steichen and what that staff is going to do, and just watching and learning from what Jalen Hurts, the things that they implemented for him. Shane Steichen, to me, seems like a very intelligent coach who is going to put his players in the best position to be successful, and I don't expect anything different from Anthony Richardson.
All right, so Tennessee is the last team that I think we should probably talk about. I hate it because I don't think Will Levis is going to be a good pro. I'll say this, though, and maybe I should put it in the Will C category because he is a rookie and he deserves every right to prove people wrong, but I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen for Will Levis. We'll see what Mike Vrabel does, because I think Mike Vrabel is an underrated coach. But Mike has got to go to his offensive staff and say, what's the game plan here? Because Will Levis is not going to be a standard drop back passer. Mm-hmm. This is somebody that's got to fit, at least initially, with the way Oklahoma did it with Jalen Hurts and the way Philadelphia did it with Jalen Hurts initially. He's got to be in a six-back offense. You have to make the defense defend Will Levis's running ability, or else I think he's going to be a sitting duck if he does get some playing time behind Ryan Tannehill, and we'll see what happens with Tannehill. But I think overall Tennessee is not in a good spot with their quarterback room right now.
Have you seen, I mean, obviously you have. You are an Atlanta Falcons fan.
Yes.
You saw
Regrettably. But I am.
So you've seen kind of the philosophy that the Falcons have when Arthur Smith took over everything, right? He became the head coach. The Tennessee Titans have slowly deteriorated in terms of how they run their offense since he left. You knew Derrick Henry was going to run the ball. You knew Tannehill was going to have some bootlegs. They were going to have some play action, some rollout situations where he was going to be able to be on the run, be on the move, and have success in that regard. It's so funny when people, don't understand how much coaches can play into the success of a player, because of the right system, you're going to have a ton of success. 2 years ago, Ryan Tannehill was, he's doing great. He led them to the number one seed, I believe, and they lost to Cincinnati.
They were, yes.
They were the number one seed. They lost at home to Cincinnati. And then after that, you just kind of seen it spiral and trickle and kind of wilter away. So right. For me, if they're going to be the best version of themselves, whether it's Ryan Tannehill, whether it's Malik Willis, who we've just seemed to cast away for a number of reasons, he's just not performing well.
He's done. You got two guys that you're.
And now you sign Will Levis. You draft Will Levis. Whether it's any one of those three, probably Levis and Tannehill, you have to be able to do what they do effectively. There's a big guy in the backfield. Hand the ball off to him. Play action, bootleg, roll out, do all of those things off of that. Get the quarterback moving outside of the pocket if he's unable to stand in the pocket and read his progression, and have him have success that way. Sometimes as coaches, we just got to take ourselves out of it and allow the player to do what they do best and not get so uptight about, do this because this works. No, not for him. It doesn't. Exactly. Do what works for him. And if they do that, they could have success again.
Carey, I think the fact what you just said is one of the most underrated aspects of football. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I always reference Bill Walsh a lot, because Bill Walsh was, let's be honest, he was a genius. He was somebody that knew where the game was headed in the 70s and 80s, realized initially in Cincinnati he didn't have a quarterback that was going to throw the ball vertically. He was somebody that was accurate, and he could complete more accurate passes going sideways. Like at the time, it was run the football, throw vertically. Right. And Bill Walsh said, well, why don't we run the football and throw sideways and take advantage of a quarterback that doesn't necessarily have the big arm, but he's got the accuracy. And then, of course, he gets to San Francisco and he finds the ultimate guy. And
perfect for that offense.
Absolutely, and Joe Montana.
It didn't hurt that you got Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice and John Taylor. And
Roger Craig in the back.
Dwight Clark. But Bill Walsh also built that. He knew what he had, and he knew what he wanted. He wanted to marry his system to the right quarterback, and he found him. So, Carey, going back to Tennessee, Arthur Smith, and you had mentioned the fact that they were the number one overall seed. Go back a year prior to that, they were dead in the water. They had Marcus Mariota. They benched him. They're like, all right, let's just see what we have with Tannehill. And to Tannehill's credit, he fit perfectly with what Arthur Smith was doing. It was Derrick Henry's offense, and it flowed from there. Arthur Smith gets to Atlanta. Now they got Bijan Robinson. That's a team. He knows how to design a run scheme. I mean, it's going to be
beautiful.
It is. I mean, they're going to be. They also know they don't have a good defense.
Right.
So how do you maximize or minimize it? Run the damn ball. Exactly. Carey just mentioned it. You protect your defense in that way. Tennessee, you're right, Carey. They've gotten away from who they are, and Malik Willis, sadly, that's done. He's not going to get developed.
So unfortunate for him, man, because some people thought he was going to be a first-round pick. He slips into the third round. He has a little bit of an opportunity.
He wasn't ready.
He not at all.
So we kind of agree that it's a what we'll see, but we lean more toward hate it when it comes to Will Levis. That's it for the offseason quarterback movement. Why don't we recap it real quick with this? The new QB for their team, do they make the playoffs? Jets, yes or no?
Yes.
I'm going to still say no.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know.
They're going to win the division.
I don't think they're going to win the division.
The Bills are going to take a step back. Leslie Frazier on at defensive coordinator.
I could see it.
They are going to take and if Josh Allen does not take care of his turnovers, it's going to be an issue going forward in his career. The New York Jets are going to win the division. And I'll put them in the divisional round game. I don't know about the AFC Championship game just yet.
Oh wow, you got them going.
I got them at least second round.
Far.
Yeah.
I'm being stubborn and hard-headed with this, but I've made my bed now with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. I think that Buffalo, while I could see them take a step back, that's still a good roster top to bottom. Miami, we'll see about Tua, but that was a team that did make the playoffs a year ago. They gave Buffalo some issues too.
Yeah.
They gave them issues at the end of the regular season and then in that playoff game. And the Patriots look lost.
Yeah.
But they got Bill Belichick, so we'll see. Moving on here, Carolina with actually, let's stick with this. Vegas, I say no.
Vegas, I would say no as well.
Houston, I'm saying no.
No.
Indy, no.
No.
Tennessee, no.
No.
And Tennessee didn't get a new quarterback, but we're kind of throwing them in the mix with Will Levis.
He's going to play. New Orleans,
yes. I think they win that division.
Yes.
Tampa, no. Carolina, I say, is a wild card threat, but they do not make the playoffs.
I don't think they make the playoffs. Just based on that division. New Orleans, I think, is going to win that division running away. It's not even going to be – it shouldn't be close based on the talent that they have and the defense that they have.
I agree.
It shouldn't be close.
Washington, no.
Hell no.
You know the team the team we slighted in all this was actually Green Bay. Jordan Love.
Yeah, we didn't. We didn't. We did exactly what we were supposed to do.
Well, we talked about Washington. They had Sam Howell.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think Green Bay because of the lack of strength of the conference, I think they're going to be better than you think.
I would.
That's a smart organization.
I would take the Chicago Bears over Green Bay this year.
Wow.
And Justin Fields in his second year, I would take his second year, right? For Justin Fields, he was
this
third year.
His third year.
Third year. I would take the Chicago Bears and Justin Fields over. You talked about it earlier. DJ Moore. They went and got the guy Darnell Wright out of Tennessee for the first round pick on the offensive line. I think they're going to be much better offensively. And what Justin Fields did last year is uncoachable. That's the thing. When you got a guy that is that special of a talent, the way he was running the football and having the success, you add a guy that can catch the ball. I know they went and got Chase Claypool, who we're still waiting. We're still waiting on old Chase.
I think he is who he is.
He's the guy that celebrated the first down.
Yeah, he did.
Oh.
Dropped the ball.
Oh, hey. You're talking to a Pittsburgh Steeler here. It still does not sit well with me.
Kid went to Notre Dame.
But I think that I would take the Chicago Bears over the Green Bay Packers right now.
I wouldn't, based on the roster. Let me ask you this, real quick, and we'll end on this. If Justin Fields doesn't take another step, is he out of excuses?
Yes.
Do you?
But I think he took that step. He took the step last year.
Okay, but so he took the step from a rookie year to last year. Does he take his next step though? Because we could have said that Jalen Hurts from his rookie year to his second year when the Eagles made the playoffs, mind you, took a step, but there was still a lot of question marks. And then of course he ended all the conversation a year ago with his play. If Justin Fields, let's just say he underperforms expectations, are you still making excuses?
No. I think if he doesn't perform at the level that we need to see from him, then he is who he is. But I think that what you get in an offense with Justin Fields now with DJ Moore, I read somewhere that if DJ Moore had been playing for the Chicago Bears his entire career instead of Carolina Panthers, he would be the leading receiver in Bears history right now.
Boy,
which
that
tells you
is
everything you need to know about the Bears' history in terms of receivers. DJ Moore is going to be outstanding for him. He's a guy that is going to go up and catch the ball, high point. He's an explosive receiver. And when you have more dynamic athletes on your team, you get to have more success. So I don't think that Justin Fields takes a step back. I actually think with the absurd and strange things that Detroit did at the draft, I thought Detroit would be that team in that division with Aaron Rodgers leaving. Chicago could potentially be a team that wins that division, depending on what. And we always forget about Minnesota because they're easily forgettable, I guess.
After they won the division last year.
So Minnesota will probably win the division again, but I think the Chicago Bears could potentially be the second in that division.
All right, let's get into divisions next week.
Indeed.
We'll do maybe a division, 2 divisions per podcast moving forward. We'll talk about, we'll make some early predictions and dive into just the overall landscape of the division, how much it changed in the offseason, and again, maybe make some predictions as well. Those will be on upcoming podcast for the Gridiron guys. That'll do it for this week. Appreciate you listening. I think we're growing little by little, so spread the word. We Carey and I certainly appreciate it, but we're just here talking football, and we appreciate that a lot of people want to tune in, and they've checked out the first few podcasts already. That'll do it for us. For Super Bowl champion Carey Davis, I'm Anthony Stalter. We'll see you next time on Gridiron Guys.
Thanks for listening to the Gridiron Guys podcast with Super Bowl champion Carey Davis and Anthony Stalter.
Driven by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Check out the Gridiron Guys podcast page at 101ESPN.com.